Welcome everybody to the Monday Mashup, the show we bring you each and every week on the upper tier out there on YouTube. You know what to do. Head out there and hit that subscribe and bell notification button. Joining me tonight, as always, on the panel, Ian representing the Blues of London from Dynamo's Dozen out there on YouTube and the Chelsea Roar, no less. How are we, Ian?
I'm very well representing the Germans tonight. I don't know why. I just thought it was a cool look. The long sleeve top under. I was like, fuck it. Just had the shower. Just back from the beautiful sunny southeast. So I thought I'd freshen up and this looked like a good option. Thanks for having me, pal.
Also joining me, as always, on these podcasts, my main man, the Dazzler. How are we, Darren?
All good evening.
We can definitely see you.
Is it the tan?
Someone did a job on the lighting.
You had a bit of a glow about you there, Dazzler. All right, yeah, you must have been getting a little bit of that.
The only thing that got burned today was the wallet, my friend.
In the sunbeds.
You're not wrong.
No, Darren was off at Tato Park today, no less.
Oh yes, this is true. Yeah, he told me that.
And for our viewers who are not familiar with that, maybe from across the water, that's not the Crisps. That's a theme park. Sponsored by the Crisps. Sponsored by the Crisps.
But it's a theme park.
With the best roller coaster in Ireland. Because it's the only one.
I was going to say, there's a new one there at the minute. The Dino Dash, it's called.
Yeah, was that it? Yeah.
Looks well. Yeah, it's grand. Oh, it's not something I'd be interested in. I prefer to shake my hands and clap. But I can tell you, there's a lot of the concession stands that sell the food that are pretty good because I ate my way around Tato Park today.
It's the best way. It's the only way to be.
So I would say you definitely put a dent in your wallet because I wouldn't say the food there is cheap either.
Wasn't, it really wasn't.
Good.
Disney prices, yeah.
Well, yeah. I suppose before we get into the show, lads, we'd like to send our thoughts, prayers and condolences to the family of Cristiano Ronaldo. Word came to us this evening that his son passed away. His wife had twins, I think, back in October, a boy and a girl, and unfortunately his son has passed away. So our thoughts, prayers and condolences, of course, for Cristiano and his family and extended family at this very sad time. Right, let's get into this Monday mashup, boys. Some very interesting results at the weekend. Tottenham 0, Brighton 1. Excellent result for Brighton there. Tottenham looking so flat. Man United 3, Norwich 2. The man we just spoke about, Cristiano Ronaldo, cropping up with a hat-trick, apparently worth 830,000 to him. We'll talk about that later on. Norwich also creating chances on the day, but very unlucky not to get something out of the game. Southampton 1, Arsenal 0. I suppose no surprise with what we've seen going on with Arsenal over the last few weeks. They were cheerleading top four like they were home and house, but it's come back to roost somewhat. And then Watford 1, Brentford 2. Brentford cropping up with a winner. I think that was late in that game as well, from what I can remember. And then the game on Saturday.
95th minute it was.
95th minute it was, yeah. And then the FA Cup semi-final, Man City 2, Liverpool 3. Certainly a game of two halves. Going to Sunday, Newcastle 2, Leicester 1. Fantastic result for Newcastle. West Ham 1, Burnley 1. I suppose a good point for Burnley in the end, but they did have chances to win it, and they'll probably be sick they didn't come away with 3, but nonetheless coming away with 1. And then Chelsea running out 2-0 winners against Crystal Palace. A very, very comfortable game, and probably way more comfortable than in what yourself would have thought on the day. But certainly when we look, I suppose, at the top four race first, no one seems to want this. Spurs don't look like they want it. Arsenal don't look like they want it. United are now back in it after being so poor. And West Ham, as you called it, Darren, we're going to melt away at some stage with European football still alive and kicking. What's your thoughts at the moment on the top four race, Darren?
Yeah, I suppose, like you said, it looks like a little bit of a poison chalice at the minute, doesn't it? Nobody seems to want it. I think those top 3 spots are nailed on. You know, it's going to be a toss of a coin between yourselves and City for the title. Chelsea have solidified that 3rd spot, and now you're going to say it's a 3-horse race for that 4th spot. Personally speaking, I think it's going to be a 2-horse race. I think it'll be between Spurs and United. I I think Arsenal are, again, just really, really short of firepower at the minute. You know, obviously the boy Lacazette was missing at the weekend for personal reasons and stuff like that. And you know, so it's leaving them very short up front. Spurs, I fully expected to win at the weekend, I have to say. They've been in great form. Brighton turned on the style though, didn't they? Like they performed admirably. You know, they defended stoutly. They attacked with ferocity and stuff like that. And they kept going to the absolute last minute. The boy Leandro Trossard getting the winner, and it was thoroughly deserved. By the way, it wasn't something they nicked. They fully deserved the victory. You know, and obviously Southampton then doing a job on the Gunners. I think we might have called that in the Premier League preview, if I'm right, that we might have called Southampton to beat the Gunners and make it 3 on the bounce.
You called it a win for Southampton. I called it a draw, remember? Yeah, I think I called it a draw, yeah.
And then United kind of, you know, stumbling over the line against Norwich with a helping hand from Tim Krul. He should throw his hat on that free kick. He should really throw his hat on that free kick. And if you think about the game and all the chances Norwich created, it comes down to 2 very, very big moments. Number 1 is the Ronaldo free kick which Krul doesn't manage to stop. And then down the other end, it's the David De Gea save at 2-2 that he does manage to stop. And like, if anything's going to get us Champions League football at this stage, it'll be the form of our Spanish number 1.
Yeah, I looked at a review there the other day, and apparently they looked at his clutch moments in terms of saving chances, big chances at those stages in games. And apparently this season it's been worth somewhere between 13 or 15 points to you. It's just crazy,
I would imagine so.
It's mad, like, when you think about that. Let's move on to the FA Cup. 2 results in I'm very happy with, because I think it's going to set up for another brilliant final, regardless of what way it goes. And I said it to you beforehand on WhatsApp. I did wish you luck, and I did want Chelsea to come through, because I think these spectacles should be huge. And I think, to be honest, I think Chelsea, after the Europa League, I think deserve their day there again to try and see, let's go again, these 2 heavyweights of the Premier League. I think for our game, first of all, I suppose we absolutely...
We weren't in the Europa League, by the way. We weren't in that this year.
Which?
Champions League.
Champions League. No, sorry about that. Champions League.
That's okay.
No, but I meant the Carabao Cup. I meant the Carabao Cup. That's what I actually meant. Sorry. Excuse me.
We were only saving you from the comments section.
No problem. That's all right. I want all the comments. That's what I want. But yeah, our game, first of all, I suppose, first half we absolutely obliterated them. We did to them what they did to us the previous week in terms of the press. Got the 3 goals, looked very, very comfortable. They came out, got an early goal, second half, changed things up a little bit. We got slightly complacent. But then after that goal, we kind of took control of the game again in terms of passing the ball around. Alisson, with a couple of good saves, as he normally does, comes up for us on those clutch moments. And then sort of Man City probably scoring that second goal pretty late in the game, which didn't really give them the chance to get the draw. But I think we went out. I know you guys came onto the thread saying that I was a bit concerned, and of course I was a little bit concerned for those last 4 or 5 minutes because we had played so well. But I think we were deserving on the day of going through. Ian, what did you make of the Chelsea game against Palace?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I was actually on the phone to Dazzler at halftime on that one, and we were saying we kind of called a bit of squeaky bum time, didn't we, Dazzler, in the second half? Because obviously it was the only way that obviously it could go with City. Otherwise, it was literally night if a goal had to come from Liverpool early on in the second half. But yeah, just that goalkeeper, fantastic work from the Man City goalkeeper. Yeah, keep him in a fucking MLB team, I would say. Baseball might be his calling, but football is definitely not his calling. Dazzler pointed out a few things to me about it, but I watched them closely in the second half then. I was like, this lad is fucking terrified now. But yeah, no, the Liverpool press was absolutely fantastic. The Chelsea game, I think, Dazzler, we had said about 2-1, didn't we? On the phone.
Yeah,
thought it might be a bit closer. thought it might be a little bit closer. We were very flat in the first half. Maybe it was, I suppose, the hangover from the travel in the the 3 days before in the Champions League, and obviously going to extra time, putting all the minutes in there probably made us a little bit flat in the first half. But the second half, we came out absolutely fantastic. It looks like Timo Werner's finally fucking arrived in the last 3 games for us. It's like, wow, now we got the Leipzig kid. I like this version.
When I seen Kovacic going off injured, I said, "Oh no!" And up steps Ruben Loftus-Cheek. This guy has been he's been overdue a goal now for how long at this stage? But he came on and he played great. In fairness,
actually, I was going to say a player like that's one player that I suppose him and Timo from the Chelsea perspective, from my perspective, I suppose, 2 players I couldn't be happier for in terms of getting a bit of form. And that goal from Ruben, I know it got the slight little deflection, but he caught that absolutely beautifully, didn't he? There was no stopping it. Thought he played fantastic kind of his last few games anyway. He's kind of stepped up. One of the quotes from Tuchel was, he has all the potential in the world, he goes, but there comes a point where potential and being tall and good looking isn't going to get you very far. So we need to see more.
I like the comment as well that how good he is on the training pitch. He now needs to bring it to the matches. Like nothing.
Yeah, that's what he said.
Thomas Tuchel is as blunt as be damned, isn't he? When he talks.
Oh, it's just like being tall and good looking isn't going to be enough. But no, he stepped up. And a shout out to a player that's come under a lot of criticism as well. Over the last couple of seasons, to be fair, Marcus Alonso has been putting in 7 to 8 out of 10 shifts the last few games for us as well, without kind of getting the credit from our fan base. So I just thought I'd point that out. I thought he's been absolutely phenomenal. And look, Reece James and all the boys are they're stepping up. It was a good win. Probably could have been more. Dazzler's favourite Belgian striker missed an absolute sitter where Timo laid it up on a plate for him.
And he also missed the first one because he made the wrong run.
Yeah.
He only got to the second one because he the first time he should have made the run, he didn't. The second time, Werner did the exact same thing. He went, "I'll go in here," and I mean, like, that's meat and drink to a striker, and he doesn't manage to finish it off. That net shouldn't be, that ball shouldn't be trickling in the way it was to the post. That net should be bulging, ready to burst with contact there.
Keeper and all in the back of the net with the ball.
Absolutely.
Did you notice the reaction of Timo when he looked across and he had his head like that, going like, "What, mate? I can't do anything else for you. Like, what more do you actually want me to do?" And you can actually see now players like Ziyech and all near the end of the game, rather than passing or trying to shred one through for him, when it's a possibility, they're taking shots because they obviously don't trust him. And one thing before we move on, I've noticed them as well, and I think Dazzler, it may have been yourself that pointed this out to me. You've done it in United days as well. It's always everyone else's fault. You look at him going like that, and he's standing with the hands out, going like, "Lads, what's the story?" Like, and you're going, "Mate, you're fucking shit. It's your own up to it." Like, he's just, it is what it is. I think the new ownership can come in fucking soon enough, so we can actually start making shrewd signings like Liverpool do.
Yeah, because, I think when we talk about players and we talk about confidence, it's the epitome of it, isn't it, really?
But there's no excuse. Confidence or no confidence. Dazzler's right with that. From 5 yards, 10 yards out, if you're paid 300 grand a week, you don't fucking miss those. In fact, if you're not paid 300 grand a week, you don't miss those. You don't miss those if you're playing 5-a-side with the lads down the fucking local pitches. So it is what it is, but good win. And it should be a good final.
Just quickly before we move on, the ownership, the Ricketts have pulled out, and they withdrew their bid, so it looks like it's more or less plain sailing for Bowley, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Listen, we probably could have called it. Didn't expect the Ricketts to pull out the way they did, but I suppose I thought it was maybe the fan pressure. It wasn't actually the fan pressure. I think it was the fact that I think we dodged the bullet here on this one, to be honest with you. I have to say, because it turns out that Paluca, the Celtics owner, and and obviously Todd Bowley's consortium. That's a straight up cash deal. So there's no there'll be no debt like the way the Glazers when they took over United. There'll be no actual debt that comes with it. And I think Bowley and Paluca were the only two that were willing to offer that. So it kind of sense that maybe the Ricketts were probably up to no good behind it all, even though they had some of the big money in behind them. I mean, the Bowley group does as well, but it kind of all played out the way it should have, I suppose. So yeah,
they were going to leverage the money obviously against the club or something. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's but yeah, like I think it should be done by the end of the week. Thank fuck, and we can move on.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep an eye out for it anyway, and I'm sure we'll drop an update on the Chelsea Roar if anything breaks anyway during the week. Let's get on to these hot topics, lads. We have to start with Sean Dyche getting sacked by Burnley in terms of timing. In terms of everything. Darren, thoughts on Sean Dyche?
Yeah, listen, it's a strange one, isn't it? When you've got a guy like Sean Dyche who's done absolutely everything for Burnley Football Club, within his power. I saw the tweet from Jamie Carragher. You don't sack a guy like that. You give him the funds to go out and build a squad. He's been phenomenal for Burnley Football Club. He really has. Any sort of a player that they've had, they've sold. They've brought in mismatches and they brought in players in the championships and they brought in frees and they brought in this and that. The guy wasn't given 30 to 40 to 50 million every summer to go and put it into a squad. And at Premier League level, that has to happen. There has to be a level of investment there. Now, listen, I completely understand clubs trying to look after their finances and, not wanting to go down the route of a Derby or a Leeds United or a Sunderland or something like that. And I get that. But you've also got to back your manager, especially when he's doing a job like Sean Dyche was doing. I think the timing of it, I'm not shocked by the timing because I think obviously Burnley are looking for this maybe new manager bounce that we talk about. Now, listen, if it ends up being the boy Mike Jackson till the end of the season, they're hoping the bounce comes from there. I don't necessarily think they're going to get anybody in very, very quickly. I know we've heard Big Sam was touted, and I think Michael Duff, who's an ex-Burnley player who's in charge of a non-league team at the minute, he's second favourite in the betting, and they spoke to him about it at the weekend. And he's like, listen, I know nothing about it. I don't think you're going to get the bounce from a new manager like that. It will be different from a Big Sam. You might get that bounce. But I think this is going to come down to what Everton do, really, isn't it? Rather than what Burnley do.
I think I was more concerned when I read the club's statement and it said these four guys are going to take charge of the team. And I was there going, oh no, you've already decided you're going to the championship. No. Who takes responsibility? And Ben Mee was on the end of that list as well. And look, I'm a big fan of Ben Mee. I think he's an excellent player and stuff like that. But I just thought, oh, good Lord. Four of them.
You're a big fan of Ben Mee as a centre back because that's his job.
Yeah.
Not as a coach, not as a manager, not as a motivational speaker before games and at half time. Like you're throwing the lad into the lion's den there. And it's not fair at all, really. Yeah.
Well, I would assume this guy all season has been giving motivational speeches before games anyway for the team.
Yeah, but it's different when you're giving it, as a player, and then when you're giving it as a manager, and when you've got to look at guys square in the face and say, listen, you're not starting today, but I might need you from off the bench. That's going to spoil and sour things. And they can't afford to take a guy like Ben Mee out of that starting 11 because he is unbelievable for Burnley. Himself and James Tarkowski are outrageously good as a centre-back pairing. They really are.
To be honest, without them, they'd be already down, wouldn't they?
100%. Of course they would,
Yeah, absolutely. Thoughts, Ian? Dyche?
Yeah, it's very strange timing. Yeah, I agree. But look, I can't really add much to what Darren said there. It's like, I mean, he's one of the main components. I don't like to say the sole reason because obviously there's 11 players out on the pitch and there's obviously 20 plus players in the squad. But the image of Burnley has, it has all of Sean Dyche in it, doesn't it? It's his imprint is on the club really at every level. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's kind of like, wow, very strange timing. Going down then to the lower leagues, like as I said, for some of these managers that you probably not heard of. I think Michael Duff may have played for Celtic back in the day, if I'm not mistaken. More of a squad player. If it's the same Michael Duff that I'm thinking of, I'll have to check that out. But like, regardless, you want to be aiming a little bit higher than that, wouldn't you? Considering that they've been in the Premier League pretty much for a long time. They're an established team now. Like, it's going to, like, you know, back in the day, we always talked about how, you know, the likes of Forest and Coventry were always in the early years of the Premier League. And, you know, as you're growing up, you always remember those names. Burnley's going to be like that for the younger generation now. People know of Burnley. So I'm very surprised that that they're not aiming a little bit higher and trying. Well, Big Sam, you're bringing him in to do the job. I get it. But, like, do you know what I mean? It's just,
yeah. I'm just not sure, Big Sam. I mean, him coming in to do the job as well. I mean, there was a bit of taste left there at West Brom when he tried it as well, and it didn't work. And
you know what I
and
mean?
then he came out and he had plenty to say about the club and the players and everything else after the fact. But I think I thought it was a weird one
that
as well.
We shouldn't be touching anymore, really, personally. Like,
but I think even from
anyway.
Yeah, but even from a Burnley point of view, if they were going to go down, isn't it Sean Dyche you'd want to try and get them back up with that experience and that kind of that quality that he has there from being in the Championship? I think
100%.
Twice before he got them promoted. You know what I mean? So it's just a very, very strange. I don't know. More might come out. Maybe Dyche maybe turned around and he said that maybe he had taken it as far as he could, and maybe he's looking for something different because he was coming up to nearly a decade. He was the longest serving Premier League manager at the time. So it's an interesting.
He looked very from the picture I saw at the weekend anyway in our group chat. He looked very happy going into the pub that he was going into, didn't he? He looked like he lost a few.
Yeah.
Won't he? I personally would expect him to pop up next season with Watford because he's an ex-Watford player as well, Sean Dyche.
That's true.
And obviously Hodgson going there till the end of the season to try and keep them up. But I don't necessarily see Hodgson going into a Championship season with Watford and stuff like that. I could 100% see Dyche coming in at Watford and maybe trying to take them back up to the Premier League, minus some of their stars, i.e. Emmanuel Dennis and the boy Ismail Assar, because they will not be there next season playing in the Championship.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. Maybe bringing Dyche in there might keep maybe some of those other players that are kind of on the fence in terms of thinking if they bring him in, saying he's likely to get us back up. You know what I mean? So we'll soak up this season to get back in there again, and then we'll establish ourselves.
Well, he would command respect. That's for sure. You know, obviously being an ex-player, but then obviously the criteria that he has as a manager.
There's two huge differences between Burnley and Watford. Watford are a team with a lot of talent who don't necessarily all pull in the same direction. Burnley are the opposite. They're a team with not a lot of talent, but everybody pulls in the same direction. So somebody like Sean Dyche is ideal for Watford, where they don't mind spending a bit of money. They don't mind getting loan guys in to get some good players on board, and Sean Dyche will get them absolutely playing for that badge.
Awesome.
Great.
Let's touch on the Champions League, lads. The two semi-finals now have been established. You've got City versus Real and Liverpool versus Villarreal.
This is where I leave now. I'll see you after this.
Yeah, you can come back on in 5 minutes if you want.
Back in 5.
No point leaving me here.
We both leave on this one. We leave.
Not so much your thoughts on the quarter-final games, but what's your thought on the semis now? Are we looking at a City Liverpool final?
I don't know
what you're thinking on it.
I think Liverpool definitely. I think will 100% get through. And this isn't a big up Real Madrid, but they did show a lot over those kind of over those two games with Chelsea. Like, they have clutch players. They have that one fucking clutch player that is possibly, arguably, the best striker in the world at the moment. You know, we're up there at least as one of the best players in the world at the moment, in my opinion. Yeah, I think he is, just because of the goals he's scoring and the teams he's scoring them against. And then you've Modric, who just literally is like a fucking fine wine. We use that that kind of adage quite a lot, but he literally is the epitome of a fine wine. It's like Pirlo all over again. Do you know what I mean? He got better with age.
The pass is as good as any pass you'll see over the last decade. It's just immense.
You cannot do anything against that. Doesn't matter who you're. That could have been the AC Milan of the early 90s, and that's gone in the net. Like, just absolute genius. So I personally feel that Real Madrid might have a little bit of a say in this match. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. With City, Dazzler might disagree with me here, but I just think that Real do have something in the way of causing City a bit of problems. I think it'll be the more intriguing game for me. Even though Villarreal, they've done a job with, on Bayern, I think Liverpool will have enough. So that'd be the one I'd have my eye on personally.
Darren?
I think both semi-finals are going to be very, very tight. I think if you look at the quarter-final, and if you look at, obviously, the Villarreal Bayern game, if you would have told us all before that Villarreal would have kept Bayern to 1 goal over 2 legs, would we have bitten on that? Not a chance. No. So we know Villarreal are very, very good at the back. The boy Raul Albiol and the lad Pau Torres have been outstanding so far. The goalkeeper is a good goalkeeper. He really is. Really, makes some great saves. Made a
Argentinian boy, isn't he?
Yeah. He made a lot of good saves against United in both legs. Now, he did cough one up as well. But middle of the park, you've got the boy Danny Parejo and stuff like that. Very, very good footballer. Samuel Chukwueze, obviously, who got the goal. Gerard Moreno.
He's going to be good. Moreno is definitely a finisher, but your man, I can never pronounce his name.
Chukwueze.
Yeah, he's a lot of Premier League games been sniffing around him.
The crown jewel for me is the boy Arno Jamjuma. We've spoken about him quite a lot this season. He's scary good, this kid. Really, really good. Played under Eddie Howe at Bournemouth. I fully expect Newcastle to go balls to the wall for this kid in the summer. And try to put 50 or 60 million on him and get him into that Premier League, because if they do, they've an absolute, huge talent, a real crown jewel in the team. I think that'll be close. I think over 2 legs they'll make it very, very difficult for Liverpool. I think it'll be low scoring, which I don't necessarily think helps Liverpool. I think Liverpool want a high scoring game. But I do expect Liverpool to get through. I think the City and Real game is a tougher one to call. But I think it's going to be a very, very different sort of a game than the Chelsea Real, if I'm honest, I think City this season, in comparison to how they have been over other seasons, City were always a very, very free scoring team. Yeah. And they always scored lots and lots of goals. But to counterbalance that, they weren't as tight at the back as they have been. Whereas this season, we know that City have been going in and winning games 1-0, 1-0, 1-0. They went both legs against Atletico, went toe-to-toe with them and didn't concede at all, and that for me is the sign of a team that might be able to plot their way to a final, because I don't think they'll cough up as many chances or as many goals as Chelsea did in over the 2 legs. And I think City will just do enough to get by here. I fully expect it to be City and Liverpool in the final.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to, in terms of the City Real game, that midfield battle there with Rodri and Kroos and Modric and those guys.
Casemiro and De Bruyne.
Yeah, that's going to be that's really the real exciting part of this. We know Benzema is so good; he's probably the best at the moment in Europe or in world football. But we know also with the front line of kind of Man City.
Well, they were missing Milito against Chelsea in the second leg as well. Don't forget, he was a big loss because he's actually a good. He's a good centre back.
But I think both of them are going to be very competitive. I don't think we're going to have it all our own way either. I'm a big fan of Emery, especially in Europe on these
over
these 2 legs and stuff like that. He's an absolute genius at figuring teams out.
100%.
Very, very underrated, but not on this podcast, obviously.
Imagine, lads, it ended up being Villarreal, fucking Real Madrid after all said and done.
Well, look, when you get down to the final 4, anything can happen.
It's a puncher's chance, isn't it?
You know what I mean? And you mentioned it, Darren. We would have thought maybe they would have kept it tight in Villarreal, but once they went to Germany against Bayern Munich, we would have thought Bayern Munich would have done what they did in the previous round and absolutely steamrolled. Can't remember who they had in the previous round. It was a Sporting. and it went in. It was one, wasn't it 1-1 from the first leg or something, that, or 0-0 or something like that?
City knocked Sporting out.
Sorry, who did they have? Can't remember who Bayern had. Who did they have? Can't remember anybody, but I think it was 1-1 after the first.
Was Red Bull Salzburg.
That's the one. And I think it was 1-1. And then when they got them back to Germany, I think they thumped them. What was it?
That's
5 or 6 or something like that. They absolutely destroyed them. But I just think to be able to do a job like that and get that breakaway goal as well to win it at the death says everything about Unai Emery as a tactical genius, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. City winning the Champions League, it kind of feel weird, wouldn't it?
well, I'm going to lay down a marker here on it because me and Dazzler have been known to throw a few at each other over the course of the season. There's a
number of bets here to be executed. Let's say
we're not betting. Don't worry, Dazzler. I'm not calling out a bet or anything because I don't give a fuck about any of these teams. But no, there's definitely. I have a sneaky feeling if I had to go on the chopping block, I think it's going to be a Real Liverpool final. Personally, I don't know why.
Repeat of Kiev.
Yeah, I'm not disregarding that. And as I said, about City, I concur with all of his statements. I just think they want it so bad. And Real, like they are literally the kings of Europe. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. I sense a Liverpool Real final, and
hopefully we out them. No Ramos there and Mo Salah has to make up.
No, with a Real Madrid win, hopefully Salah has to go off early in the first half again, and be nice.
Terrible.
We bring Bale on for the final.
Darren, who are you leaning with to win it?
I think I'm just leaning towards City. I have been pretty much, the whole competition have been like just thought City. I think, over the last couple of years they had opportunities and they didn't necessarily, do what they needed to do. But I think Guardiola's learned some lessons and I think they're a different City team this season.
Last year would have probably been a big one for them as well, Dazzler, wouldn't it? Obviously getting to the final and not really, kind of choking in a lot of ways. I know it wasn't a big scoring match, but they didn't dominate the way you would expect.
Also, their European form has been so good compared to their league form. In terms of their league form, they've been getting through games and it's been workmanlike. But in Europe, they've been very, very strong, and they had a really tough group as well, if we remember. So interesting. We shall see. Darren, you were on to me straight away when that Fernandinho tackle went in. Mark was going to be on tonight to have a chat about it. What was your thoughts?
Yeah, it's funny because obviously when you sent us the hot topics earlier on, this was on it and I looked at it straight away and it was the epitome of a borderline call for me. I thought it was so close to being a yellow while so close to being a red at the same time. I just thought if it's against me, I want them to see red. If it's me, I'm thinking, it's a yellow ref. And I think it was very, very tough decision. I'm not shocked he went with the yellow. I think in the semi-final and stuff like that, you go with the yellow. It's the safer option. You haven't really killed anyone's chances and you can't be vilified. So maybe the ref has a little bit of that in his mind. He shouldn't, but maybe he's got some of that going on. But I mean, it was very, very close to the line.
Yeah,
I wanted to be a little bit more controversial on this now, Dazzler. Now that I have you on for backup as well.
I suppose the fact that he hadn't picked up a yellow previous to that with some of the tactical fouls that he had made meant that even if he had got a yellow in this, it would have led to a second yellow and a red. Was I suppose the point? I looked at it and I thought, yeah, I'm okay with it. I want to keep, I wasn't jumping up and down calling for the red. As you remember, Darren, you messaged me first and I said, yeah, I could see a red being given, but I think if VAR reviewed that and it had been a VAR situation, I think he might have went and had a look at it and he might have looked at, because of that slow motion stuff that Mark talks about, he could have easily pinged the red if he had, if VAR was in operation at the time. And the way they slow it down and then it looks really bad, the way he caught him. Because even when they showed the slow-mo on the TV at the time, it looked really, really bad, so Ian.
Yeah, no, I just I thought I'd bring up, because it wasn't on the agenda last week as well, about the two kind of tackles with Fabinho, obviously, and Thiago,
absolutely.
the Premier League game. No one really talked about that, you know what I mean? And I know now, in fairness, Niall, you were quite honest about it, because we'd had a conversation about it. And it was kind of like, all right, well, I don't know, like, I mean, and this isn't a dig at Liverpool or any team in particular, but it is kind of a case, I suppose, of what Dazzler said there earlier, where if it's against your team, you're calling for it, but if it's not, you're maybe all right with it. For the neutral, I could see why Dazzler would be quite calm about it too. Same with me. You're going, I don't know, maybe the ref made the right decision. But I think what we're seeing is a bit of a pattern. Even the week before, the ref could have easily sent Thiago off, because I'd say Klopp wanted him off as soon as possible just to calm him down.
That was that pattern with Thiago was just so weird, the way it unfolds. Well,
you know what I mean?
I think the ref was just totally confused about what to do more than anything,
Yeah, and it's kind of like, right, you let it go, but I heard opposition fans saying, well, look, at the end of the day, he's at the making. Like, the first one could have been of a red, without a shadow of a doubt, but then there's another one then 2 minutes after it, and I'm looking at Klopp going, I need to get this lad off, or I need to get word to him to fucking pipe down.
Yeah. But it was just such a weird foul as well, because there was just bodies on the floor, and he was trying to figure out what had kind of happened. You know what I mean?
So it seems to be with Liverpool and City now that, like, you do have that couple of, even though the two managers are in love with each other, but the players seem to fucking like to get a little bit plucky, don't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which you want to see.
Well, there's a lot on the line,
Yeah, so you want to see that as a fan, though. Do you know what I mean? Even as a neutral.
Something that we're not going to talk about for long, but I just thought I'd highlight it. An Everton footballer arrested on suspicion of child sex offences has had his bail extended. Not really going to get into it, but it was just a headline this week, so we'll leave it at that. The distaste on these things is
like there's been there's two of those at Everton this season alone.
It's weird because they always said mums go to Iceland, but clearly that's wrong as well.
Do you know what? Like, it's actually funny because wasn't there something earlier on about possible said player? I'm just trying to. I don't know.
We're not going to cut it there. That's
but there was something said about a player with Everton earlier in the season too, and it's like
absolutely. But for the purposes of this, we'll leave it at that till anything is mentioned.
Stay in Asda.
I was going to bring up, it was one of the hot topics, Cristiano Ronaldo's hat-trick bonus, 850,000. I kind of feel terrible now that I put it on the list.
I was going to actually suggest maybe you skip over this one.
Yeah. I'll take the same route. I'll just highlight it and go, look, yeah, I mean, 850,000 pounds for a hat trick against Norwich. I'm just thinking.
He's not Jimmy Savile, so give it to him.
Yeah, 100%. Rumour coming out this weekend. You're a fan of the Italian league. AC Milan looking at a takeover, 1 billion. Talks with InvestCorp and a major shareholder from Abu Dhabi, no less. What you're thinking on this? These boys from Abu Dhabi and Saudi Arabia, are they trying to just own the whole of world football, but they're just doing it piece by piece or something?
Well, yeah. They hate the West. I can't really make it any clearer. And probably for right reasons. I don't know. But like, I don't know. I think it's a strange one. Look, AC Milan is a fucking, I mentioned them earlier, obviously, with the, in the 90s, and we all remember that. We all remember the Maldinis and the Bareses and going further back. They're an absolutely fantastic football club. It's just, obviously, they've had a Chinese owner as well. Inter Milan also, and it hasn't really worked out. You were expecting these billions to be pumped in to kind of make Milan great again, both teams. And the
whole Chinese thing has gone down the wrong path completely, hasn't it?
Oh man, it's just gone like nothing. Like, it's just fucking, it's flabbergasting actually. You're just like, these motherfuckers don't be screened. Do you know what I mean? It's just I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe you could make a little kind of a joke in there, like, you know, what you want, you know, like the old Brendan Grace skits. You know, maybe keep Chinese as just a takeaway food and not fucking football club owners. I think.
I suppose the financial hit they've taken during COVID and stuff like that, and being hit badly with it as well, has probably affected it greatly. But I suppose it's leading down the road as well. We're probably we're on the verge of losing the San Siro, that great stadium. And I suppose,
but this is what could save it, to be fair, if the investment is right. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, it'd be a crime if we start losing things like that. You know what I mean?
The investment won't save the San Siro.
No, I would imagine the investment is pushing towards the new stadium more so than saving the San Siro. That's what I would.
I know, and that's why I'm saying it's crime. It's just fucking. It's a shame. Like, I mean, I have a lot of Italian friends as well, and lads who would have went over and watched bands like fucking U2 and the Rolling Stones and all there. Like, it's not. It's more than just it's like. It's one of the stadiums that we know as football fans, isn't it? That you wanted to actually watch your team go to back in the day and play against the great AC Milan or the Inter Milan. So it's sad what's going on. But look, it's unfortunately the corruption in Italian football has been so fucking, and the management, I suppose, of their league. It's like it's night and day when you look at that in the Premier League. You know what I mean? And it's not just all about investment from TV rights in the UK. It's also just really bad mismanagement by A, club owners in Italy, and B, the actual Italian FA as well. Like, it's just been it's sad to see, like, because it looked like for about a year or two that it looked like the Italian Serie A was on the way back now. And,
it was, but I think the issue was they tried to move to make it a heritage site, didn't they, Darren, if I'm right? And that got turned down. And once that was turned down, then the writing was on the wall, because there was no protection there for the stadium, basically. But I think once it happens, I think we'll do a show on the San Siro, because there's definitely been some magical moments in that stadium, in world football, but also, as Ian mentioned as well, in concerts and all sorts of stuff that they've hosted.
Generally,
we'll definitely look at it as a stadium, and we'll mark it with an episode. There's no doubt about it. The last one I wanted to finish on, lads, I don't know if this was a shock to you or not, but when I read it, it was a shock to me, because I don't remember recollecting a lot of this stuff coming out at the time. But 15 Premier League stars failed drug tests between 2015 and 2020, but none of them were banned, and a report has revealed across a 7-year period from 2013, there was a staggering 88 positive tests among footballers in England, Scotland, and Wales. The 12 performance-enhancing substances cases included 1 positive test for amphetamine, 3 findings of triamcinolone, which is the corticosteroid that Sir Bradley Wiggins used before the Tour de France victory in 2012. But they were saying that these cases went through and they weren't punished because they were like therapeutic exemptions, or they had accidentally ingested them. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on this, because I know the numbers aren't huge in terms of the volume of players in the Premier League and stuff like that, but I don't recollect a lot of this being reported through these years at the time. I don't know if you guys recollect many of this coming through.
Was Adrian Mutu back playing for someone back then? Was it just him on 15 different occasions? Does he want his money back?
Yeah. But
way further back than that.
Yeah,
no,
he's way before that.
Yeah. No, I'm taking the piss. He was 2004.
Yeah. And I think in his case it was more party, wasn't it, than performance enhancing.
People like the boogie, you know. What can I say? Poor El Mutu.
Some people like lines and some people like paragraphs. Yeah.
Well, he had to. Yeah, exactly. He had to, but he lost 15 million out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Darren, what was your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it was a strange stat when I read it earlier on. You know. If just give it a heads up, if the battery's about to go, if I go disappear, thanks for listening. Don't forget, like and subscribe, hit the comments as well. But yeah, it was a little bit of a shocker, to be honest with you. Obviously, there's a protection racket going on inside football as well, that maybe clubs are afraid that the name of football will be blackened by this, so things are staying under wraps and stuff like that. Maybe the league has agreed to do stuff like this if it's performance related, and maybe lads are taking silent bans. We don't know about it. I'm a tennis coach. There was a talk for a number of years that Rafael Nadal took a silent ban, and that all his injury woes were actually the ATP tour saying you're not allowed to play because we've caught you doing X, Y, and Z substances. And that was right for a number of years. And if you look at the way Rafa's physique changed over the years,
very good point.
There's a lot to back that up. Like at one stage, he literally looked like Popeye. He was so big. You know, I think the difference between right and his left arm, being a left-handed player, was 4 inches. Now 4 inches is massive. And I think, you know, there's
most women might disagree.
there's possibly something behind it, you know, and it's maybe something the league have done as well. Maybe they've said, listen, if it's performance related, we sit them down for 9 months. They're out injured. They've done their Achilles, they've done a cruise ship, whatever they've done, and they sit aside because we don't want the name of football to be blackened and stuff like that. You know,
that's happened a lot in American sports too, Dazzler.
Yeah,
I'll give you the Chicago Blackhawks, for example. There was a number of coaches and stuff like that. They're like a big hockey team over there, and for anyone that isn't familiar, and they had they had a bit of a situation where there was a number of abuse cases from some of their coaches, and it's still being investigated, but it was all kind of hush money. And I think Dazzler might have been onto something there, because when you look at someone like, say, like he mentioned Nadal, which is a good example. He literally looked like he was chiseled from fucking stone, didn't he? He wasn't a huge guy, but just chiseled. He always wore the sleeveless tops. And then you look at people like Federer and Djokovic, and you're like, where did they get their energy from? Because they just literally almost look like skin and bone, but they're natural fucking athletes. You know what I mean? So I think he's right. I think, you know, it's too kind of because I mean, if you look at, like, say, in his instance that he used was Nadal, he's an integral part of their marketing. Do you know what I mean? You can't have a Wimbledon without Nadal or an Australian Open without him, because he's so vital to the marketing. And it's the same with football on a much even higher level. So I think some of those silent bans could have happened that we didn't know anything about. Now, we say 15, you know, Premier League players. It could be a case now where these are 15 fucking squad players trying to reach the next level to get their places in. So we can only speculate. We can't throw, you know, the finger of blame or point the finger of blame to anybody on it. Like,
it's just I just wanted to highlight as a story, because looking back from 2013 forward with 88 cases, I don't remember any of it kind of like.
Me neither.
I was shocked at it the other day that I couldn't recall it. And the thing that stuck out to me the most was the one that, like, there was 4 positive tests for Ritalin, and everyone knows how dangerous Ritalin is as an agent going into your body. And I was very surprised at that. Like, I mean, how would you like accidentally ingest Ritalin, or how would you have a therapeutic exemption for a drug like Ritalin that's like lethal? You know what I mean? And that was the one that stuck out to me the most. But I was amazed at it. Like, you know, that 2013, I think this was up as far as 20, I think it was. So it was like 7 years. There was 88.
That's strange tests, though, as well. That's really strange, because like the last thing I can ever remember, the last big story, and you know, that I can remember, was the whole Rio Ferdinand debacle. Like that's the one that stuck out. The one where he missed the test, and there was such a big furore over it and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that stuck out to me. And I was thinking, I don't remember reading any article about any player that even had an accidental test, you know what I mean, or something like that. So I just thought I'd bring it up as a topic. And it's interesting that 2013 to 2020 period is really the period where the Premier League has come into its own in terms of becoming the best league in the world in terms of performance, and you know how football has changed in terms of athletes, clubs, in terms of sports science and everything that they've invested in, you know what I mean? So for me, it was just something that I wanted to highlight and get your thoughts on it, because I just couldn't recall any of it all. I couldn't even recall a single name that I remember being reported in that period. As you said, maybe it was fringe, but then I was thinking, well, if it's fringe, why would it be happening? You know what I mean? Unless you're trying to break into the team. But I just know in that 2013 to 2020, like the Premier League became so big, and in world football became so dominant and stuff like that and all, in terms of the quality of the football and everything and all, you know. So
yeah, like if people, you know, there'll be people out there, obviously, if they want to put their conspiracy theory hat on, like they'll think, oh well, it's not fringe players, it's probably big name players that they need to.
Well, you could be right with a fringe player. It could be a fringe player that's trying to get into a first team, you know, and he's trying to up his performance so easily. Yeah, you know?
It could be genuine, where he was given misinformation on something. You know what I mean? And basically, it's because we have seen in cases where genuinely, like even in boxers and you know stuff like that, that they have taken a supplement. Has, you know, I mean, good. I can tell you here now. I took a supplement from fucking Poland. It was, I probably should have known. No disrespect for the Poland, but it was like, it was meant to be just like a normal creatine, but it had absolutely astronomical levels of pro hormones in it, which is basically growth hormone.
Well, we've seen it with supplement companies as well, that where they get their products made, they're made in factories where similar drugs is made, and you can have cross contamination and stuff like that and all that 100%. Kind of things. Yeah, absolutely. But
I remember me missus going, whatever you're on, stop it now, because I was getting mood swings like nonstop. I was training like a motherfucker, but I was, you know what I mean? I was off my rocker. So
like, there was obviously something in it.
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's but that particular line, it was like one factory. Say for example, and I'm not defending players if they've done that wrong, but there was one factory that was all based out of, and there was an article then obviously finding that they had actual growth hormone biotics within their products, but they weren't advertising that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but we've seen even with USADA, when they've taken proteins off the shelf in GNC stores and stuff like that, when they've tested them, there's been cross contamination, because a lot of the labs that make these nutritional supplements and that kind of stuff, it's made in the same factories where they make tablets or powders for these drugs that are used in other parts of medical fields, maybe to treat health issues and stuff like that, and they get cross contaminated. And we've seen it with a number of sports stars over the years, where they've been able to prove this, and their bans have been shortened and lifted and stuff like that as well. But I just thought it was an interesting topic.
No, it is.
When you think about how, like, the league has evolved and football has evolved, and the strength of it and the sports science, and footballers are now so much more athletes and all this kind of stuff and all. And also we've seen as well with injuries, the recovery time from injuries has come down a huge amount. You see players coming back much quicker now from injuries that would have kept them out for 6 months or half a season or a year or whatever. And in some cases, not even come back.
That's a good point, because even I was only thinking about this as well. I was talking with my dad actually about it, and we're saying, remember back in the day, if you'd done a cruise ship, you were like, fuck, that's a big one. Players sometimes are coming back 6 weeks later now. In some instances, now I know there's different levels. There's different, and
there's medical advancements as well, and how much you've done it and all that kind of thing and all.
Because these lads, these days are pure another. I mean, like, they're almost babied, aren't they? Like they're told that they're.
The analysis is massive. And because they have so much data now, they can nearly tell you when you need to sit out, that you're not where you should be. Like, it's amazing the way it has advanced.
I watched a documentary. Jesus, it was a few years ago, and I remember it was actually a Chelsea thing, and they showed, your man was shown, like, one lad's role was literally to make the different protein shakes for different players, and they have different stuff in them to make sure, you know what I mean? Like, so one lad might have, you know, a mixture of certain, you know, seeds or whatever,
vitamins or minerals or whatever it is. Yeah. So they know what your levels were at and what you were lacking and all. Yeah. Dietary.
Madness.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's brilliant.
And I think Rafa Benitez was one of the first to bring that in with Liverpool with the sports science, actually.
Yeah.
Back in
Wenger as well. Wenger
was
huge on it. Wenger was huge on it.
Yeah,
he brought it in big time.
But I think, Rafa Benitez, I remember in particular, was like he lived and died by it. Like, you know what I mean? They brought in, like the best of the best, and that's obviously where it's gone now. Like, you know, there's actual sports science roles for people now, whereas back in the day,
absolutely,
you had your coaches
and those roles in clubs now are huge in terms of performance and stuff, you know. So yeah, it's massive investment in it. But yeah, listen, a pleasure having you on as always. Dazzler had to pop off, battery issues. But if you'd like to contact the show, let us know your comments down there. If you want to contact the show, the Upper Tier Podcast at gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music if you want audio versions of the show, and you'll also get us on Twitter at @the_upper_tier. We're out there literally every day now dropping match reactions, previews, player ratings, whatever it is, articles, interviews, all that kind of stuff. Got some really good interviews coming up over the next couple of weeks as well, with a few people you may be surprised that are coming on to the upper tier, that are at a certain level you wouldn't expect us to gain access to. That's all I'm going to say on that. For myself and from Ian the Dynamo Kelly, as always, get over to Dynamo's Dozen, drop a like, share and subscribe on that, and also check out the Chelsea Roar. Ian's dropping Chelsea content there on a weekly basis. Keep an eye out for that. It's been a tough season for him, but he needs all your support and grow that channel, and we will talk to you again real soon.
We can also say as well, just give people a little bit of a confirmation that because a lot of your listeners will have been from the Dynamo Podcast Network days. The return of the 4 Podmen is also on the way. With yours, as in yours truly, and I'm pointing at you, Niall, and back in the saddle. So
it's kind of like going to be a 50-50, isn't it? It's going to be 50% of the original cast and a 50% new cast. So it should be interesting. And we'll be bringing you pro wrestling topics there. I think you were saying once a fortnight or once a month. Not too sure.
We'll start out once every 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, once every 2 weeks.
Everyone their wrestling content.
We'll give you our views on pro wrestling as well as football. Until next time, folks, a pleasure. Cheers, bud.
Take it easy, brother. Thanks for having me.